The desperate alliance. The problem with fighting a war for 3 centuries, Admiral Zolthrix said, staring out the viewport at the scattered remains of what had once been the pride of the Stellar Harmony's defense fleet, is that you eventually run out of inspiring speeches. I nodded silently, keeping my primary eye stalks respectfully lowered as befitted my station. As the Harmony's chief Sino-historian, I wasn't typically invited to high command briefings, but these were desperate times. The Voidborn Collective had pushed us back across 17 star systems in the past solar cycle alone. Our resources were depleted, our forces scattered, and our civilian populations were beginning to whisper of surrender. Historian Thelis, the Admiral's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Tell me again about these humans. I activated my datapad, though I hardly needed it. I'd been studying the inhabitants of the small blue-green world on the spiral arm of a backwater galaxy for years. Earth is a level 3 civilization, Admiral. Pre-FTL, but advancing rapidly. They've established colonies on their neighboring planets and have developed rudimentary antimatter containment. Their military technology is primitive by our standards, but their rate of innovation is concerning. Concerning? Admiral Zolthrix's secondary gill flaps pulsed with curiosity. They developed from basic atmospheric flight to thermonuclear weapons in less than 50 planetary cycles. Their computational technology doubled in power every 2 years for nearly a century. And their weapons? I hesitated. Their weapons, historian. They weaponize everything, Admiral. Their entire history is a catalog of turning mundane objects and scientific discoveries into increasingly efficient ways to kill each other. Then, curiously, once they perfect a weapon, they developed elaborate rules about not using it. The Admiral's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. And you believe they could help us against the Collective? I believe they're our only remaining option. 3 cycles later, our diplomatic vessel entered Earth's atmosphere under stealth protocols. We'd chosen a remote location for first contact, a stretch of desert in what humans called Nevada. Our linguistics team had spent months analyzing their dominant languages, and our cultural specialists had prepared extensive briefings on appropriate greeting rituals. None of that mattered. They detected us the moment we crossed their outer atmosphere. By the time our landing craft touched down, we were surrounded by primitive but surprisingly effective aircraft and ground vehicles. A human female in a dark uniform approached without visible fear. "Welcome to Earth," she said calmly. "I'm General Catherine Hayes, United Earth Defense Force. We've been expecting someone like you for decades." The diplomatic team was stunned into silence. I stepped forward. "How did you detect our approach?" "Our stealth technology is impressive," she interrupted, "but not perfect. You disrupted our satellite network's background radiation sensors. We've been watching the skies since we split the atom. Now I assume you're here because you need something from us, not the other way around. So let's skip the formalities." I couldn't help but admire her directness. "We're at war," I explained. "A war we're losing. Against the Voidborn Collective, a hive mind species that considers all non-collective life to be cosmic aberrations requiring extermination." General Hayes nodded as if this was exactly what she expected to hear. "And you need cannon fodder." "We need allies," I corrected. "Our civilization, the Stellar Harmony, has fought for 3 centuries. We've lost billions of lives, hundreds of worlds. And what do we get if we help you? Technology, FTL capabilities, medicine that would eliminate most human diseases, access to resources across thousands of worlds. And if we refuse?" I met her gaze steadily. "The Collective doesn't distinguish between spacefaring and pre-FTL species. Once they finish with us, they'll find you eventually. And humans would make particularly interesting specimens for their biological experimentation programs." A faint smile crossed her face. "At least you're honest. I'll convey your request to our leadership. Don't expect an immediate answer." It took the humans nearly 2 of their months to respond. During that time, The collective pushed deeper into our territory, obliterating the Cerulus system and its 7 billion inhabitants. When the humans' transmission finally came, it was disappointing but not unexpected. The United Earth Council appreciates the stellar harmony situation. The message began, but we must decline military involvement at this time. Humanity must focus on its own development and security. Admiral Salthrix's scales darkened to the deep purple of despair. So that's it then. Our last hope refuses. I wasn't so certain. Something about the humans' response felt calculated. They had been too interested, asked too many specific questions about collective technology and tactics. It wasn't fear that motivated their refusal. It was strategy. We might have never known for certain had the collective not made their fatal mistake. The human research vessel Galileo was on a routine mission to study a gravitational anomaly at the edge of their solar system when a collective scout ship detected it. Operating under standing orders to eliminate all unknown craft as potential harmony surveillance, the collective ship opened fire without warning. The Galileo and its crew of 17 were vaporized instantly. We detected the energy discharge and immediately understood what had happened. I expected rage from the humans when we contacted them with the news, perhaps even an immediate reversal of their decision to stay neutral. Instead, their response was a silence so complete it sent chills through my dermal layers. For 3 full days, Earth made no official statements, no diplomatic outreach, no military mobilization that our sensors could detect. It was as if the destruction of their research vessel was so insignificant they hadn't noticed. On the 4th day, Earth broadcast a single message on all frequencies. You have taken 17 of ours. We are coming. Within hours, Earth erupted into activity. Military installations worldwide entered maximum alert status. Civilian manufacturing facilities began rapid conversion to military production. Space launch facilities operated continuously, sending what appeared to be hastily armed vessels into orbit. The Central Earth Council sent us a terse message. The previous offer of alliance is now accepted. Provide all technical specifications for your weapon systems and exact coordinates of all known collective command centers. Human forces will deploy in 72 hours. 72 hours. After fighting for 3 centuries, the humans proposed to ready their forces in just 3 days. We thought it was bravado. We were wrong. Exactly 72 hours later, a human fleet appeared at our designated rendezvous point near the Proxima Centauri relay station. I stood on the command deck of the Harmony flagship alongside Admiral Xalthrix as the human vessels emerged from their primitive warp bubbles. That can't be right, the sensor officer stammered. I'm detecting over 4,000 ships. Impossible, Xalthrix said. They're pre-FTL. They couldn't possibly. They've adapted our specifications, I realized aloud. They took our technical data and applied it to their existing technology. The view screen activated, showing General Hayes sitting calmly in what appeared to be a command chair. Behind her, humans worked with focused intensity at various stations. Admiral Xalthrix, she said without preamble. The UEDF is ready to engage. We've reviewed your tactical data and strategic assessments. General Hayes, the Admiral replied, his voice betraying his astonishment. How did you assemble such a force so quickly? Some of these ships appear to be converted civilian vessels. They are, she confirmed matter-of-factly. When humans go to war, we don't distinguish between military and civilian resources. Everything serves the effort. But your weapons systems are unconventional but effective. We've integrated our existing armaments with the specifications you provided. She leaned forward slightly. Now we understand the collective's primary command nexus is located in the Arcturus sector. We propose an immediate full-scale assault. Admiral Xalthrix's scales paled. That's suicide. The collective's defenses there have repelled our most sophisticated attacks for decades. General Hayes' expression didn't change. With respect, Admiral, you've been thinking like the stellar harmony. We think like humans. And before we could argue further, the human fleet began to move, reconfiguring into attack formations that violated every principle of tactical doctrine I'd ever studied. "They're going to be annihilated," Zolthrix whispered. But even then, watching their ships accelerate toward collective space, I sensed that we were witnessing something unprecedented. Something that would change everything. We just didn't realize how quickly. 5 hours that changed everything. Hour 1. The decoy and the hack. The human fleet's approach toward the collective's Arcturus defensive line was, by any rational analysis, suicidal. Their ships were outgunned, their defenses insufficient against the collective's crystalline beam weapons. "They're letting themselves get hit," Lieutenant Commander Vozek observed from the tactical station, her voice rising in disbelief. On the main display, we watched as collective fire tore into the human vessels. But instead of exploding into space debris as expected, the ships continued their advance. "Those aren't conventional shields," I realized, studying the sensor readings. "They're using ablative armor designed to absorb energy and disintegrate in controlled sections." Admiral Zolthrix's gill flaps pulsed rapidly. "But the crews are perfectly safe," came a voice from behind us. A human had entered the command deck unannounced. A slender male with dark skin and silver-rimmed visual aids perched on his face. "I'm Dr. Amol Kapoor, UEDF Scientific Division." Each hit takes out a section of armor that was never critical to begin with. Meanwhile, the ships are gathering vital data on collective weapon frequencies and response patterns. "How did you get onto my command deck?" Zolthrix demanded. Dr. Kapoor smiled apologetically. "Your security protocols were designed to keep out collective infiltrators, not human hackers. Speaking of which," he gestured to a group of humans who had seemingly materialized at various stations around the command center, their fingers flying across portable computing devices. "What are they doing?" I asked, fascinated despite the breach in protocol. "While General Hayes provides the distraction, we're providing the solution. Your systems have been collecting data on collective communications for centuries, but you've been analyzing it with logical, sequential processing. We're applying what we call lateral thinking, looking for patterns in what you dismissed as random noise." A human female with intricate markings on her arms called out without looking up from her device. "Got it. The collective quantum encryption has a cyclical redundancy we can exploit. Initiating penetration sequence now." "That's impossible," protested our cybersecurity chief. "We've been attempting to crack their encryption for decades." The woman flashed a smile that displayed far too many teeth. "You've been thinking in binary. We thought in jazz." Hour 2. The Trojan Horse. General Hayes's fleet had impossibly pushed through the first line of collective defenses. The cost had been high. Nearly 800 human ships had lost their outer armor layers, and several dozen had been disabled entirely. But they kept advancing, and more importantly, they kept transmitting data back to Dr. Kapoor's team. "We've got access to their communication network," announced one of the human technicians, a young male consuming some kind of stimulant beverage at an alarming rate. "Inserting the package now." "What package?" Zolthrix demanded. Dr. Kapoor's expression grew serious. "Something we call a logic bomb. The collective operates on a hive mind, yes. All their ships and soldiers connected through crystalline quantum computing." I nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "Their greatest strength is about to become their greatest weakness," Dr. Kapoor finished. "We've created a cascading paradox algorithm. When it reaches their central nexus, it will force their hive mind to attempt to solve an unsolvable problem." Hour 3. The Cognitive Cascade. The main collective battle fleet had emerged to engage the human forces. These were their elite vessels, planet killers that had reduced countless Harmony worlds to radioactive debris. But something was wrong. The collective ships were moving erratically, their formations breaking apart without apparent cause. "It's working," Dr. Kapoor said softly. "The paradox is spreading through their network. Their ships are receiving contradictory commands." On our tactical display, we watched in astonishment as collective vessels began firing on each other, their perfect coordination deteriorating into chaos. General Hayes's face appeared on our communication screen. Phase 2 complete. Moving to Phase 3. Dr. Kapoor turned to Admiral Salthrix. We need your remaining battle cruisers now. The Collective's network defenses are trying to isolate the infection by severing connections to their command nexus. For a moment, Salthrix hesitated, 3 centuries of cautious strategy warring with the unprecedented opportunity before him. Then his scales shifted to decisive red. All Harmony vessels, advance on the Collective command nexus. Standard attack pattern Delta. Hour 4. The breaking point. The combined human and Harmony fleet converged on the Collective command nexus, a massive crystalline structure orbiting a neutron star. Under normal circumstances, its defenses would have annihilated any approaching force. But these weren't normal circumstances. Their defensive grid is operating at 31% capacity, reported our tactical officer. They can't coordinate their responses. General Hayes's fleet had reconfigured again, this time into a formation I'd never seen before. The surviving ships had locked together, combining their propulsion systems to create what essentially amounted to a massive kinetic projectile. What are they doing? Zolthrix asked, his voice barely audible. Something very human, I replied, understanding dawning. They're going to ram it. The improvised human battering ram accelerated toward the command nexus, while our cruisers provided covering fire against the remaining Collective defenses. Dr. Kapoor and his team continued their digital assault, their faces illuminated by the glow of their screens as they fought a battle as crucial as the physical one unfolding before us. Logic bomb has reached critical nodes, called out one of the human technicians. Cognitive cascade failure imminent across the entire Collective network. Then General Hayes spoke, her voice calm amidst the chaos. This is for the Galileo. The human ram struck the command nexus at a significant fraction of light speed. The crystalline structure didn't so much explode as shatter, fracturing along billions of perfect cleavage planes, the pieces spinning away into space like a deadly diamond snowstorm. Hour 5. The surrender. The effect on the remaining Collective forces was immediate and absolute. With their command nexus destroyed and their hive mind crippled by the human logic bomb, the once fearsome armada drifted aimlessly in space. Some vessels simply powered down. Others began broadcasting the same message on all frequencies, a message that our translators rendered as, "The voice is silent. What is purpose? What is self?" Admiral Zolthrix stood in stunned silence, his scales cycling through colors so rapidly they appeared almost white. 3 centuries of war, billions of lives lost, hundreds of worlds devastated. And it had ended in 5 hours. You targeted their psychology, I said to Dr. Kapoor. Not just their technology. He nodded. The Collective had never developed individual consciousness. Their strength was their perfect unity. We gave them individuality, and they had no defenses against it. General Hayes's command ship, one of the few that hadn't been part of the kinetic ram, docked with our flagship. When she walked onto our command deck, the Harmony crew stood at attention in a spontaneous show of respect. The remaining Collective forces are broadcasting surrender signals, she reported. Their drones are shutting down across all sectors. Admiral Salthrix performed the formal Harmony gesture of highest honor. General Hayes, the stellar Harmony owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. Your 17 lost souls have been avenged 1 billion times over. Hayes's expression remained somber. Those 17 were explorers, not warriors. They died seeking knowledge, not conflict. The best way to honor them is to ensure this never happens again. In the cycles that followed, the humans helped us establish contact with the fractured remains of the Collective consciousness. Without their hive mind to enforce conformity, the individual Collective members began to develop distinct personalities. Many were lost, confused by their newfound individuality. But others embraced it, working with human and Harmony psychologists to build a new society. The war that had defined my entire life, that had seemed as permanent and inevitable as the stars themselves, had ended in less time than it takes most species to enjoy a formal meal. When the human diplomatic corps later established an embassy on our homeworld, they'd brought a small monument, a simple obsidian obelisk engraved with the names of the Galileo's 17 crew members. Beneath the names was inscribed a quote from an ancient human philosopher named Sun Tzu. "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." The humans had certainly fought, but they had won by understanding that the most powerful weapon isn't a planet killer or a doomsday device. It's knowing exactly where to strike, and with what. As I complete this historical account, the former enemies now work together on a massive undertaking. The Galileo Initiative, a multi-species scientific exploration program. The first new research vessel, crewed by humans, Harmony, and even former collective members, launches tomorrow. Its mission is the same as its namesakes: to seek knowledge, not conflict; to explore, not to conquer. The universe, we have all learned, is vastly more interesting when seen through many eyes rather than one.